Hey there, welcome back to a brand new series of videos where I'm going to be talking about lost media. In particular, lost films or lost sequences of films. Uh, I have collected a series of links from the Lost Media Wiki. All the credit goes to them for all their hard work, but I thought it would be a fun series of videos to do. It's something that I'm definitely fascinated with and I'm really interested in. I really love reading up on and talking about instances of lost media or films that never got made or sequences that were deleted. So I thought this would really be a nice change of pace for me. And I hope you enjoy it as much as I am going to doing this series of videos. So, the whole structure for this series is I'm going to take some links from the Lost Media Wiki or some other sources, and I'm going to give you the information, and then I'm going to, once in a while, give my thoughts on some of the things, and that's really the whole format of it. Um, and with each installment, they're going to be based around an A to Z alphabetical order. So in this particular first part, I only have a few instances of lost media I want to discuss. So this will probably be a shorter video than some of the other ones, which will have more titles because I discovered more titles that started with that particular letter versus the ones that have less examples or instances that I particularly found were interesting or noteworthy. And I put together this list quite a while ago, so I'll probably go through the Lost Media Wiki again just to see if there's anything new. And if there is, I'll do another video talking about that stuff after I'm done with this series. This is going to be a pretty long running series because I have a lot of links that I want to talk about. So, yeah. Hopefully you'll find something to enjoy about it, and I just hope that maybe through stuff like this I can do something to help you guys and you gals take your mind off of what's going on right now in the world and just sit back and enjoy and just kind of have something that you can put on and not think too strongly or too hard about and just find enjoyable in a different way, in the kind of way where you can just kind of um, relax and turn your brain off, but still learn some stuff. So anyway, this first installment is on Ace Ventura, Pet Detective. So apparently, before the theatrical premiere of Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, director Tom Shadyac removed several scenes from the film, most of which were restored when the movie aired on television, like the infamous dolphin trainer scene and so on and so forth. However, there were several additional deleted extensions to scenes that were never restored in any fashion and have never surfaced to this day. According to Shadyac on the film's DVD commentary, some of the remaining scenes were considered too dark in contrast with the tone of the rest of the film. And they definitely are. I mean, these sequences are genuinely messed up, fucked up, dark as hell, don't fit the tone of the film in any way whatsoever, and I'm genuinely shocked that they were even a part of the screenplay, let alone were actually filmed in any capacity. So, these are the known lost scenes. In the scene shown on television where Ace enters Ray Finkel's hometown and asks a depressed gas station attendant for directions, he had just interrupted the man as he was about to put the barrel of a shotgun in his mouth. Nothing says Jim Carrey comedy like shotgun suicide. I mean, what the fuck? Like, it's not a black comedy. It's not a dark comedy. This type of humor does not fit at all with the overall tone of this movie. So it's understandable that it was cut out of the film. But what I'm having trouble with is the fact that this even got to the point where they even filmed it in the first place. So Here's some more. An extension of the scene where Ace is using the gas station's exterior payphone to call Melissa would have shown Ace exiting, only to see paramedics wheeling a gurney out of the station covered with a white sheet with a blood stain on the head area. Alrighty then. After Ace's car is flipped while chasing Dan Marino's kidnappers, he is knocked unconscious and he has a nightmare where he is dismembered by a massive flock of albino pigeons. Yes, you heard that right. There was a scene that they filmed in Ace Ventura: Pet Detective where Ace has a nightmare where he's dismembered by a massive flock of albino pigeons, similar to another deleted scene in The Dark Half. I don't know if you've heard about that. There was a deleted scene from The Dark Half where Timothy Hutton's character, I think the Stark character, he gets completely just torn apart by these pigeons, but it was cut from the film, if I remember correctly. So it's crazy that Ace Ventura has similarities with the fucking Dark Half. And there actually is a still here. So this is a pretty graphic image. So, oh no, it's not, it's lost. The image is no longer there. So there was the image, but it's been deleted. Apparently, I can't find it. Where is this sequence? Where's the picture? Apparently the picture... Well, if you have any luck finding that image, please feel free to share it with me. I'm really genuinely curious about seeing that image. I mean, it says like, it's like, warning, still from a deleted scene. It's graphic. You're like, oh my god. Like, holy shit. But yeah. What the fuck? Like, seriously. Then there's another scene where Ace swings the giant loading hook at Einhorn's henchman, and it was extended to show that the two men were beheaded by it. Ace then cleans off the hook while rehearsing what he'll tell his lawyer. So, wow. So there were scenes that were filmed where Ace decapitates people with a loading hook. He gets attacked by a massive flock of albino pigeons and is dismembered, like fucking Joe Spinell at the end of Maniac. There's shotgun suicide jokes. Like, you're just like, what the hell? Like, what the hell? But anyway, yeah, that's the Ace Ventura Pet Detective deleted lost scenes that were cut for a reason, because wow, that movie would be considered tonally wrong at the very least if those scenes were kept in the film. Regardless, I still honestly want to see those scenes, despite the fact that they are so out there and they're so batshit insane. I'm still really curious and I want to see these sequences. Probably never will, but I really do want to see the scenes. I mean, if they were kept in the film, would the movie have been rated R? Like, more than likely, I'm guessing it would have been rated R if those were kept in the film. So, speaking of R-rated or horrific scenes, we go to the next bit of lost media, the All-American Massacre, which is a partially found unreleased Texas Chainsaw Massacre spin-off film. So, the All-American Massacre is an independent film that was an unofficial spin-off of Texas Chainsaw Massacre 1 and 2, starring fan favorite Chop Top, played by Bill Moseley. So he reprises his role as a character in this prequel/sequel. The film features director William Tony Hooper, the son of Tobe Hooper, the director of the original two Chainsaw Massacre films. Despite having been completely finished, All-American Massacre has never been released to the public, which is really curious, because Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a pretty popular franchise for the horror community and for the genre. I mean, we've already had multiple prequels. We've already had a remake. There's a rumor of another remake. So, yeah, it's kind of surprising that this hasn't surfaced. So, it was intended to be a 25th anniversary tribute to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The film was to act as both a prequel and a sequel to the first two films, with flashback sections bridging the plot together. As stated in the official press release, there would be no connection to the third or fourth Chainsaw films, as those movies were not directed by the Hooper family. And this is one of those instances where you have a sequel or prequel that was going to ignore the other ones that I probably honestly wouldn't have a problem with. Even though I don't mind the third film for what it is, it's more of a remake or a reboot than a straight up sequel to the first two. And the fourth one, The Next Generation, it's not really much of a direct connection to the first two either. In fact, it's even less of a connection if you ask me. So, I would have been totally fine if they ignored those two and just took place after the events of the second film. It's one of those rare instances where I'm okay with that approach, which is why it's too bad that this is not fully shown up online or for purchase in any capacity. So, it was set 12 years after the events of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. Chop Top has been captured and placed in a psychiatric prison. When interviewed by a tabloid newspaper, we get to see flashbacks of his life. A much younger Chop Top, known as Bloody Bobby for copyright reasons, would make an appearance. These flashback sequences would serve as a connection to the first Chainsaw film, as we would see characters such as the Hitchhiker and Leatherface return. After these flashback sequences, Chop Top would then escape and start a new massacre, an All-American Massacre. Now, here's why I'm wondering whether or not the reason for this not being released is rights issues. Kind of seems like that might be the case, considering they couldn't actually use the name Chop Top. So, the cast comprised of Bill Moseley as Chop Top, aka Bloody Bobby. The same character as Chop Top, just with a different name. Brian Patrick Carroll as Buckethead, as Leatherface. Todd Bates as a young Bloody Bobby. Stephen Lokotosh as Steven. Daniel Bergio as Nicky. Greg Herger as Grandpa, a prison guard and a television reporter. Pretty much no one that's well known other than Bill Moseley. It was directed by William Hooper, produced by William Hooper and Stefan Lokotish, and music by Buckethead. So apparently Buckethead himself was playing Leatherface. Interesting. The script was by William Hooper. He also edited the film, and he was also the director of photography. Buckethead also did the music. So in 1999, the film began as a 10-minute short that was known as the All-American Chainsaw Massacre. The plot at the time hadn't been developed. However, such elements as Todd Bates playing a younger Chop Top had already been planned. As time passed, it eventually became a much longer film. This press release from August 16, 2000 confirms that the finished film would now roughly be 60 minutes and was shot entirely in high-resolution video, whatever that means. I guess back then, high-resolution video was a pretty big deal. Oh, it's in 720p! The score for the film was composed by Buckethead, who also played the role of Leatherface. While the reason for it not being released is unknown, it's speculated that rights issues are the case. Rightfully so. That was my conclusion. The film uses the Texas Chainsaw Massacre characters, including Leatherface, and the rights of the series are constantly changing. The entire production also seemed to be unauthorized. It's rumored that they were scared to release it as they felt it would just further damage the series after The Next Generation came out. Like, how could it honestly be any worse than The Next Generation with a transvestite Leatherface from transsexual Transylvania? However, Tony Hooper said this was not the case and it was just due to money problems during post-production. Okay, alright. There's been a Facebook account website teasing its release. There was even a Kickstarter which failed to reach its goal. Bill Moseley doubts that the film will ever be released. In June and July of 2013, an eBay auction with original film negatives and a 35mm film belonging to executive producer Eric H. Lasher surfaced online. It is unknown who bought these items and whether or not these listings contained a copy of the movie. On March 8th of 2020, this is really cool. A small clip of the film surfaced on YouTube featuring the character of Leatherface, played by Buckethead. This is some of the only footage that has been found of the film, besides interviews with cast members and the trailer. So this is the clip from the film. All-American Massacre clip. Humming Silent Night? Okay. What the fuck? What's that? I mean, I'm not gonna judge it too harshly because it's out of context. I don't know what the context of that clip is, but that didn't look very promising, to say the least. Why is Leatherface humming Silent Night? What is this? The Texas Chainsaw Massacre version of Silent Night, Deadly Night, or Black Christmas? What is going on here with that? And the all the different cuts and the cut to the guy screaming was just who's a pretty piss poor actor. That was pretty bad. I gotta be honest, it was pretty bad. But I still would like to see the full film regardless, because it seemed like it was a labor of love for Toby's son, and it would just be an interesting thing to see, and definitely for Bill Moseley. Apparently, there's a high quality trailer for it. It's like 2 minutes and 37 seconds. Okay, please stand by, Channel 7. Huh, nice bit of gore there.
Far out.
I like the use of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre type of noise, which is like that. What is it, chain gate or something like that, or an old camera bulb. How about that use like that in the remix? It doesn't look like a total pile of shit for a fan film, essentially. I have to be honest. It definitely gave me Rob Zombie vibes, like Rob Zombie's Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Definitely made me feel like it was somewhat close to a Rob Zombie take on TCM. I mean, let's just. I mean, it's one of those things where let's see it. Just put it out there. Let people see it. Hopefully they'll find it so the fans can check it out and see for themselves. But I'm not gonna have a whole lot of hopes for it. Like I'm not gonna be like, oh my god, it's gonna be great. I just, I mean, I'm hoping that it will at least be better than the next generation, but that's not saying much. But anyway, I definitely wanted to talk about All-American Massacre because I had never heard anything about All-American Massacre. Apparently, I'm massacring the English language right now. My apologies. I had not heard anything about All-American Massacre until I did my research for this series. So it's completely new to me. So the next section from the Lost Media Wiki is An American Werewolf in London. This is the lost footage that was cut from the uncut version of the film. An American Werewolf in London is perhaps one of the most famous werewolf movies ever made. It's not perhaps, it is. It revolutionized the special effects used in the subgenre, which has been based on basic cross-dissolves and makeup changes ever since The Werewolf of London in 1935. However, one scene from the film was lost after test audiences reacted negatively to it. There is no known video or audio footage from the scene, and no detailed descriptions of what happened in it. All that is known is that it features the tramps being killed in a junkyard. In the released version, the movie simply cuts to another scene in place of where the death scene should be. As there are no decent views of the tramps when they appear as ghosts later in the film, it is unknown how they died. Much like the spider pit scene in the original King Kong, the sequence distracted the audience from other more vital parts of the film and was cut before final release. Director John Landis later admitted he regretted moving the scene. It is believed that nothing is left of the scene, and it is unlikely that it will ever be found. There is an unrated cut of the movie which has more blood and gore, but it is exceptionally rare and does not contain the aforementioned scene. Okay, where is that cut? I've never heard of that cut. And I'm a huge fan of this movie. I've never heard of an unrated, bloodier, gorier cut of An American Werewolf in London. Does anybody know where that is? And yeah, it's too bad it was cut. I mean, test audiences can be fickle, and they're only a small portion of your eventual audience. I don't understand why back then and even now studios cut scenes out or redo things just because the test audience, a small test audience, didn't like it. Especially when some of these test audiences that they have for some of these films are not the right audience to begin with. I mean, for instance, this is a horror film. Get the diehard horror film fans and get their opinion, because that's the main crux of what your audience is going to be. Same for a comedy or a sci-fi movie or an action film, comic book film. If you're doing a comic book film, get the comic book fans in there and get their thoughts. I understand they're trying to get a wider scope, but with films like American Werewolf in London, it probably wasn't going to have... I mean, it did fairly well, but let's not act like it's going to get the same audience as Blues Brothers or Animal House. So, I just think it's an unfortunate thing to do, period. I mean, it sacrifices the director or the writer's initial vision, and most of the time when these changes are made, it isn't for the better. Now, there are rare instances, and there are some instances where these changes are made due to test screenings that are actually positives. They're positives for the production and for the film, but there's a lot more stories that I've heard and I've read where it's just not. And then these sequences are lost, and people will never get to see them because they were put on the cutting room floor. So the next one I want to talk about is George Romero's The Amusement Park. And this is from Birth Movies Death. This is actually from a couple years ago. This is when a guy on Twitter, Daniel Cross, got a hold of footage from the amusement park. Actually, got a hold of the full film, and did some tweets about it. Shared some photos. It was a short film that George Romero did in 1973, shot between Season of the Witch and the Crazies, and apparently, it's very savage and it's very shocking. And according to Daniel Krause, it's dangerous and uncomfortable. Now, Birth Movies Death actually gives a little bit more detail on what the film was about, and that's what I'm going to focus on here. So apparently, it's not technically a movie. That's the reason why it's not on Romero's IMDb page, as most directors' industrial/commercial work outside of music videos don't usually show up on their online resumes. I guess it was something he did for some commercial work or something like that, apparently. Or some fan film that he did. It is around 25 minutes. And there is this other film scholar, Tony Williams, who wrote about the amusement park. And this actually is his thoughts about the amusement park after seeing it. Basically, this is his thoughts. Not really directly after he saw it, but after he had seen it years ago, and he was just remembering what he saw. So he says, although it lasts about 25 minutes, it is one of the most radical indictments of American callousness towards the vulnerable members of its society, and implicitly articulates a need for social humanistic revolution within that society. What gives the amusement park its edge is its keen combination of fantasy and realism and an allegorical condemnation of selfish materialism. Similar to kind of the themes that he would expand upon in Dawn of the Dead. And honestly, themes that are very relevant today, especially with what's going on with the virus and the pandemic and how people are reacting to it, whether it's positively or negatively. So, Williams continues here and he says, the film begins with an optimistic old gentleman in a white suit encountering his mirror image in a white room. Where the latter differs is in his bruised, bleeding, despondent condition. A door leads to the outside. The disheveled figure warns his spruce counterpart not to venture outside. You won't like it out there. The other man ignores his advice. He ventures out into the amusement park. The old man is apparently played by Lincoln Mazel, who would go on to portray Uncle Cuda in Martin. That's really cool, actually. And Williams continues here. This is America. The America of commercialism and entertainment. A place where the individual is valued for his purchasing power. Whoa! Romero was way ahead of his time. The old gentleman purchases tickets for the various events, beginning a journey into humiliation and despair. In the various sideshows, he is either ripped off economically, patronized, treated as an imbecile because of his age, his attempts to help an elderly couple whose Dodgem car is attacked by his aggressive driver, played by Romero, ignored because he has forgotten his spectacles. He's robbed and assaulted by Hell's Angels and misunderstood as a child molester when he attempts a kindly conversation with a little girl and is violently assaulted by a young man. That one is really controversial. Back then and still to this day. And honestly, there's a big point to that. There's a lot of stigma associated with older men just talking with girls, little girls. Not sexually, just having a conversation. It's like, they're considered to be skeevy or horrible for whatever reason. And, I mean, on one hand, I get it. But on the other hand, if it's just harmless conversation and he's not actually trying to groom the girl for anything, then what's really wrong with that? I mean, I'm just saying. But that's just me personally. Um, so then Williams continues. The last incident occurs after a particular section of the film. A young couple go to a fortune teller to see what their life will be in America half a century later. Both have aged, become useless members of society, and live in slum conditions. Man, like, this is a really messed up plot, but it hits very close to home. And I heard something that this is being restored or it's going to be released. Nowadays, this would probably still have the same impact as it did back in the 70s, especially with this whole ageism thing going on with the pandemic. And when you have these people saying things like, oh, well, they're old and they're the ones that are the most affected by this virus, so we should save the young people and, quarantine all the old people and so on and so forth, because they're the ones that are most likely to get it anyway, and who cares? And why should the old people get privileges? I'm just quoting things that I've heard on social media from certain individuals. It's not my personal belief, because I believe that's messed up. That's just a screwed up way of thinking. And it's really eerie to me that this short film that Romero made in 73 has parallels to society right now. We haven't evolved that much. In fact, we haven't really evolved, period, when it comes to this mindset. And it's just pretty fucking messed up that we're still at that point multiple decades later. So both have aged. They have become useless members of society and live in slum conditions. The man has a heart attack and his wife attempts to phone a doctor. After problems of coins and unsympathetic telephone operators, she finally gets through to the doctor, who is too busy pandering to his rich, pampered clients to come to their aid. The young man leaves the tent horrified at his fate in a future America. He sees the old man, representative of the age he will become in the future, and vents his fear on him by a violent attack. And then he talks about the ending. The wheel comes full circle. He encounters another spruce alter ego about to venture outside. He warns him, "You won't like it out there." And then the camera dwells on his despondent face. So, apparently, the runtime was padded out with other stuff, like an epilogue where Maisel attempts an encouraging salesman-like finale, but it's too late for any kind of lighthearted conclusion or lighter conclusion. Williams implores that the amusement park must never be released as it's too powerful for American society. I don't agree with that. I think it should be released, especially now. Romero has long since passed away. Like, I really think it should be something that should eventually be released. But whoa, what an intense story and an intense short film. Damn. What are your thoughts on it? Feel free to leave your comments in the comments section down below and your thoughts on it. We're going to finish up, though, this part with a little bit of a discussion on the unfinished film adaptation of Apt Pupil. So, in 1987, British director Alan Bridges began to film an adaptation of Stephen King's 1982 novella, Apt Pupil. The story centers around Todd Bowden, a teenager who realizes that a man who lives in his town is actually a Nazi war criminal named Kurt DeSander. Todd blackmails DeSander into telling him the gory details of the Holocaust in exchange for him not turning him over to the authorities. Over time, his stories take their toll on Todd, and he eventually turns to murdering homeless men to relieve his nightmares. Child actor Ricky Schroeder played Todd, while British actor Nicole Williamson played DeSander. So Nicole Williamson, who you might recognize, he was in Excalibur, and I believe he was also in Spawn. Only about 3/4 of the film, approximately 40 minutes, was completed before the production ran out of money and Bridges was forced to abandon the film. The budget of the film was $14 million, but only $9 million was spent. There was also a lawsuit because there was a scene where the actors had to strip naked during a shower scene, but the lawsuit was determined to be without merit. That's really kind of spooky considering the parallels to the abuse that apparently took place on the set of Apt Pupil, from what I've been hearing. I could be completely wrong, but it seemed like there was some sort of abuse that was happening with the director, Bryan Singer, and one of the stars. I'm one of those that tends to believe that there actually was something that went on, the full details of which I don't know for sure, but the ones that have been shared are definitely pretty shocking and appalling, and it seemed pretty credible to me. But that's just me personally. So, the film apparently had too much Nazism and references to the Holocaust, which I don't understand why there's too much, because that's what the basis of the story is. That in that Pupil film, which has something to do with the Nazi war criminal Kurt Dessander, I don't know why there's so much of a controversy in regards to the Nazi imagery, because that's a big part of the story. So, but I can see why people found that to be controversial, but I don't understand why it's particularly a problem or something that is a reason why the film wasn't finished. Apparently, there's some homophobia going on. Carolyn Picard and David Frank write that the face of evil was represented in the film as Nazism, oft-labeled as quintessentially innate and supernaturally crafty, but also in a more subterranean way, dangerously blurring the boundaries between homoeroticism and homosexuality. The film also expounds its connection between homophobia and the Holocaust. So the novella was later successfully filmed by Bryan Singer, starring Brad Renfro and Ian McKellen. Apparently nothing has been seen or heard of the unfinished film by the public, and its current whereabouts are unknown. It was rumored that some of the screening tapes of the film circulated at a convention in 1987 and 1988, but nothing has surfaced since. Stephen King called what he saw of the film really good. Take that with a massive grain of salt, considering some of the films that have been made based on his work that he's given a pass to and said they're really good, and the films that he says are crap. But that's just me personally. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I definitely have more coming. I had fun with this, despite some of the really dark shit that we talked about, like the amusement park and all this other stuff. But I still hope you found some enjoyment out of it. And stay tuned for the next part. And I'll see you later. See ya.